since 2006. We'll run through the biggest games of college football, play of the day as well. As we've cooled off a bit, I take some of the blame with play of the day. We recap, and it was a light card in the world of sports. We start with the play-in game in the American League, a tough beat if you had the under. What was it, 2-0 in the bottom of the sixth? A couple of home runs late, 7-2 Yankees. The decision to go with a bullpen game backfired on the A's. They had been, remember, they were 8-1 with Fiers, who was number one in ROI in all of baseball. 8-1 since they acquired him from Detroit. Hendricks had nothing early on. They had Severino on the ropes. They couldn't get a run across early. And William Hill had a great prop, 11-1 on the yes. Would Davis and Stanton go deep? They both did in the eighth inning. 7-2 Yankees. Sure. They take on the Red Sox tomorrow.
Sure, and 11-1. I think the odds were higher than that. I'll just put it that way. But the fact where Davis goes yard in the top of the eighth, the only thing that Oakland did offensively all night, and then Stanton. I mean, there wasn't even any drama in the total with that. Stanton, the first at bat in the bottom of the eighth, goes yard as well. You're sitting with an under 8.5 ticket. You're feeling pretty good, and you feel a little nauseous. Then you're ripping that ticket up. That a very tough beat, no question about it. Not the last one we'll talk about when it comes to the MLB postseason, Pauly.
That is 8 straight winner-go-home losses. Winner-take-all, rather, games that the A's have lost, 8 in a row, going back, to, I think, to the 70s. Here's your prices now. As the National League gets underway today, first game, the Brewers going with a bullpen game as Woodruff will start against Sensatella. It looks like Anderson in game 2 for the Rockies against Chacin. At the Westgate here in Vegas, the Brewers are 150. I see 150, 160. It's going to be hard. Imagine if the Rockies can steal one in Milwaukee. They're up against it with a horrible spot. At home, day game Sunday, day game in LA Monday, night game Tuesday in Chicago, day off, and now day game in Milwaukee. Unbelievable. So they can't throw Marquez and Friel until they get back to Coors, and the red-hot Brewers have won 8 in a row.
Sure. And we look at these LDS series prices. Brewers minus 150, Rockies plus 130. The Dodgers minus 260, Braves plus 210. These are all openers from the Westgate Superbook here in Las Vegas. Red Sox minus 155, Yankees plus 135, and the Astros minus 160, Indians plus 140. Basically, what these lines are telling us is that there's a lot of live dogs in these series. Rockies, Yankees, Indians, all underdogs, but being priced competitively. The only team the markets really don't like right now is the Atlanta Braves. And you see that in the World Series odds, too, when you see the odds to win the World Series right now with the Red Sox 3-1, Astros 7-2, Dodgers 9-2, then Brewers, Yankees, Indians all 7 or 8-1. The lowest 2, the Rockies at 10-1, and the Braves at 12-1. There's just not a lot of support for the Atlanta Braves right now in this postseason betting marketplace.
They must be taking a lot of Dodger bets at the Westgate because that's 220 around town and other shops as well. So they're going to get a lot of Dodger money over there. Ryu today, Kershaw in game 2. And I think the Yankees are live. Our season series was 10-9. And how can you ignore the issues that, how about Porcello, Price, and Sale? A combined 0-11 with an ERA of 6 when starting playoff games. Mercy.
And that's a track record that explains why this number is as short as it is, despite the fact that Boston had the best record of any team in baseball in the regular season anymore. And when you look at the Red Sox were great all year at beating up the weak. They dominated all the lesser teams in the American League. You can look team by team. I mean, one bad team after the next. Boston obliterated them. When they stepped up in class against opponents with a winning record, Red Sox were a sub-500 team, and the market's noting that and reflecting that in these series prices.
Weird night to the start of the NHL season. San Jose, many people picked to win the Pacific Division and make the Stanley Cup Finals. They get Carlson. They were $1.70 home favorite. Misleading score. They got beat 5-2. A lot of people worried about Jones. They weren't sure he was a good enough goalie to take them to deep in the playoffs. Well, the shots on goal were 33-14. They had 14 shots on goal, and they put 4 past them. Unbelievable. So Anaheim wins that game 5-2. Everyone's been betting the Maple Leafs to win the Stanley Cup. They won in overtime at home against Montreal. The Flames were a favorite. They took a little bit of money. They have a new coach. They were supposed to be improved. Still could be. It's only one game. But they lost to Vancouver, who's rebuilding. And this is not supposed to happen. Play of the day,
Nope.
not even close. Bad job by me. But you go against the champs with the ring and banner ceremony and the highlight video. 2-0 Capitals, a minute 40 into the game. They rough up the Bruins 7-0. And the Bruins took a lot of money.
Yeah, and the one thing we could say, and of course, when it comes to hockey, if you're getting a hockey play on Sportsbit, it's probably something that Pauly likes. That being said, you weren't the only one that liked the Bruins yesterday. Going around town, everyone I talked to, oh, Boston, bet against the defending champs, bet against the defending champs. Remember, Caps for dogs in their series against the Knights a fair bit. They've been something of an undervalued commodity, and certainly last night with the 7-0 final, Boston, a wrong side loser.
All right, here we go. College football, rock and roll. All the betting news you need to know in less than 20 minutes. I'm at Real Sportsbet on Twitter. He's at Teddy_covers. What a way to start the day Saturday. 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox. Oklahoma against Texas. Oklahoma 7.5, 61.5 the total. Great job by Herman in Texas turning it around. They haven't lost since they got beat by Maryland on that neutral to start the season. Oklahoma, good bounce back, blowing out Baylor after the overtime win at home against Army. But the story here, make no mistake about it, is Tom Herman, who is 10-1 ATS as a dog as a head coach. The great Dave Malinsky, his stat went back to when he was an offensive coordinator, which I think was like 16-1, something like that. The one loss was last year against TCU. But you look just at Texas. He was a 15-point dog at USC. They lost in double overtime by a field goal. They should have won the game. He was a 9-point dog against Oklahoma in the spot last year, got beat by 5. 7-point dog against Oklahoma State, lost by 3. 7-point dog against TCU, got beat by 17. That was the loser. 3-point dog at West Virginia, won by double digits. 3-point dog against Missouri in the bowl game, won by 17. When it really gets fun is when you go back to Houston, what he did at Houston. 12-point dog against Oklahoma, won by 10. 14-point dog against Louisville, won by 26. 7-point dog in the Peach Bowl against Florida State, won by 14. 3-point dog against Navy, won by 30. 10-1 ATS. And not only that, Teddy, he wins a lot of these games when he's a dog.
He sure does. And again, you talked about the track record. You just went through his tenure as a head coach. If you go back and look at his tenure at Ohio State as the offense coordinator, and prior to that at Iowa State as offense coordinator, you're going to see a time. And I didn't go back and check it. I think it's something like 25-2, somewhere in that range. I mean, it's really insane with Herman as a dog, which tells us when Texas is getting points, we can only look at the Texas side of the equation. This is a head coach that has been in this role, including against Oklahoma last year. Remember, Texas was down 20-0 in that game last year, and they rallied to take a 24-23 lead before Baker Mayfield hit Mark Andrews on a 59-yard touchdown. That ended up being the final margin, 29-24. Texas got the money, even though they didn't get the win. But you say Tom Herman's the number one story here. We got to talk about Kyler Murray, because let's not forget the guy he's replacing, Baker Mayfield, won the Heisman Trophy, was a first-round pick, top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Last year at this time, Mayfield 74% completions, 15 touchdowns, 0 INTs through 5 games. Through 5 games this year, Murray 71% completions, 17 touchdowns, 2 INTs, very comparable to the Heisman winning numbers from last year. And of course, this kid's a legend. And he went 42-0. I heard 42-0 or 43-0 in high school. He won 3 straight titles. He was the 2014 Gatorade Player of the Year. This guy was like a celebrity in high school. Texas senior defensive end Charles Omenihu talking about Kyler Murray. Quote, "That's a very good player. The dude's accurate. He can put the ball almost anywhere. He's a lot better than what he was in high school and at A&M, that's for sure. He's a boss." We know about Texas as a dog. However, this is a QB that I'm not in a giant rush to stand in front of. He's hot right now. And Ellinger, while he's gotten better, 9 touchdowns, no picks last 4 games, eliminating mistakes, he's not Murray. And that's a concern for me on the Texas side of the equation, which is the only way I can look in this ball game.
Got the money the last 4 years, and I know they blew a big lead against Kansas State on the road and had to hang on. But you're right, with the track record and the recent success with Texas keeping these games close, not to mention the Herman angle, I could only play Texas as well in a marquee matchup to start, followed by 12:30 Pacific on CBS. LSU in Florida. I don't get the move. We gave out LSU -2 earlier in the week. Open 3, down to 2, 2.5. Some support for Florida at home. 43.5. The total should be a low-scoring game. I will take Burrow over Franks. Eddie Orgeron, Foghorn Leghorn, doing a good job this year. The blowout win against Miami on a neutral. They went to Auburn and rallied after they were down double digits in the second half. They looked great last week against Ole Miss. And Florida played it was a tough game, though. That was the Dan Mullen Bowl last week. Their defense was awesome, but I think if we go back and look, maybe Mississippi State and Joe Moorhead have all these issues with Fitzgerald on offense. They've haven't cracked more than 10 points in the last couple of weeks. So great job by Florida defensively, but they only scored 13 points in the win on the road. It's going to be hard to score against LSU. I like LSU in this one, but should be a fun game, low-scoring game in this one. And what do you think of the spot as LSU's off an easy win and Florida had the 13-6 slobber knocker against Miss State? As you know, they were fired up with Mullen going against his former team.
Yeah, I mean, it's a clear LSU spot, and we're continuing to see the LSU Tigers as a team that hasn't fully been accepted by the betting marketplace as an elite squad. And a lot of that comes, due to the quarterback position. I mean, there's not a lot of love for Joe Burrow out there. Burrow's not a second-tier guy. We're talking about a guy who was at Ohio State and has certainly played very, very well in early season action at LSU, including rallying his team from behind from a double-digit deficit to win at Auburn. And Auburn's a tougher environment than the Swamp is. The Swamp is not one of the stronger home fields. We think about it as one of the stronger home fields. It hasn't been. The Gators have been struggling to sell out. Mullen challenging the fans. You got to get out here and make some noise. Tons of empty seats. Even that SEC opener against Kentucky, another game where that Florida offense couldn't move the football. Plenty of empty seats. Watching Felipe Franks, I'm with you on which quarterback I want. That being said, worth noting, Florida's already equaled their win total from last year, and it's all about defense. Number 2 in the FBS in pass defense. Just really good numbers. However, worth noting, LSU on the offensive line, a couple of injuries, 2 guys who were very questionable. Looks like they're going to be good. Starting left tackle, Sadiq Charles should be ready to go against Florida, and Lloyd Cushenberry also expected to play. Originally, he was listed very questionable. It's worth noting that Tigers team has used a different combo on the offensive line in every game this season, but with this duo back in, that's supposedly their proper offensive line.
All right, and we'll go quick on this one. I don't know who put this in. This isn't the 80s or the 90s, Teddy. Florida State and Miami, 12:30 Pacific ABC. Miami up to 13.5, 48.5 the total. Disaster in year one for Taggart. They had to survive. They needed a break, a miracle. Petrino throwing the ball when they could have decided to run the clock out and make Florida State use timeouts. They threw it on first down, interception. Florida State scores late. They win by 4 on the road. Miami at home, different team, and they exercised the demons last year. Florida State had won 7 in a row in this series before the 24-20 win on the road by the Hurricanes. Good offense now with the quarterback change to Perry. And look at this, the turnover chain back. And they have 3 defensive touchdowns in the win against Carolina on Thursday night.
Yeah, sure. And certainly when we're talking about a series with an incredible history, in the modern era, we've seen really good competitive games here. In fact, games decided by less than a touchdown each of the last 3 seasons, with Miami, as you mentioned, finally exercising those demons with the 24-20 win last year. However, this point spread sitting near 2 touchdowns in most locations right now is not indicative of how this series has been played. It's been an underdog series. It's been a competitive series. And certainly if you're looking at series history, you can only look at the Florida State side of the equation. That being said, when a coach benches the senior quarterback and puts the freshman in, you know that Frosh can play and or the senior can't. Rick did that in Miami. He benched Rozier. Rozier had his share of struggles. You watch Perry play. He didn't have to do a lot against North Carolina last week, but this kid, a dual threat dynamo. I understand the series history. It's hard to lay points in this series, but I'll say this much. Miami's a lot better than Florida State right now. They really are.
Yes. All right, we'll go to the primetime game, the marquee game of the night. Notre Dame against Virginia Tech. Notre Dame now that they with the big win over Stanford and the win to start the season against Michigan, watch out, because if they win this game, you tell me where the loss is coming. Pitt, Navy in San Diego, Northwestern, Florida State, Syracuse in the Bronx, and then at USC. Notre Dame can do this. Now, easier said than done. This is going to be tough to win in one of the best atmospheres and environments in college football as they come out to Enter Salmon. It'll be crazy at 5 o'clock Pacific. Now, Notre Dame, with the quarterback change, great job by Kelly here, as Wimbush was only completing 50% of his passes, and Book's been awesome in the last 2 games. The Irish taking money up to 6.5 and 56 the total on the road. But this stat from Brad Powers that you will not believe. Notre Dame is 3-15 straight up on the road against ranked opponents since 2006. My God. And you knew Fuente would bounce back and Virginia Tech would bounce back. They are now 7-1 under Fuente off a loss. The debacle against Old Dominion. Willis, not bad. And the defense bounced back, running out Duke on the road last week.
Willis, not bad. Willis was amazing. We're talking about a former walk-on. We're talking about a Kansas transfer. We're not talking about a guy that, oh, yeah, Ryan Willis, he's going to light it up in his first start at Virginia Tech. What did he do? 17 of 27, 332 yards, 3 scores, no turnovers. And, of course, he earned ACC Quarterback of the Week honors in that first start. And it wasn't just Willis, remember. All right, the secondary, Virginia Tech's young secondary got lit up against ODU. Not the case against Duke. Farley and Quillen and Watts, all really good. And, of course, we talked about what happened when Trevon Hill got dismissed, got kicked off the team after the ODU loss. He was their leading pass rusher. What happened? Hoshin Gaines comes in and finished with a career-high 2.5 sacks in the win over Duke. An impressive performance. And Virginia Tech's not a team that I'm convinced. I'm not sure where to price this team right now. The markets seem to really want to bet against them. I bet against them last week and learned my lesson. And, of course, Ian Book, those first 2 starts, 6 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, 0 INTs. However, this will be a relatively tough defense in a very hostile environment for a QB that hasn't been in a whole bunch of these situations before. I can understand your support for Virginia Tech, even though the markets are looking the other way.
Well, the other thing is, Notre Dame's got a little bit of Miami in them. Remember, Miami's a different team away from home, and the Brad Powers tweets are unbelievable. He's got the numbers. Last year at Stanford, they lost 38-20 on the road against Miami. These are short spreads. They were 2.5-point dogs at Stanford. They lost by 18. They were 3.5-point dogs at Miami. They lost 41-8. 2016, they went to USC. They lost by 8, although they were big dogs in that one. They lost at Temple. The Clemson loss. 2014 at Arizona State, they gave up 55 points. The Florida State was close, came down to the final drive as well. So that is staggering with that number as well. And the spot, too. You're off the big kind of tear down the goalpost win against Stanford, although they cruised in the second half. Now you got to go on the road prime time against Virginia Tech.
It's certainly no easy task for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this week. And as you mentioned, the market's nothing but Notre Dame money. Apologies. Ran out of time for Texas A&M, Kentucky for today. Bottom line,
good
hard for
game
me to bet against Kentucky right now. That team
yes.
is playing defense at an elite level, and it's not a team I want to step in front of. But unfortunately, with a 20 minutes or less window, we ran out of time on that.
It's a good game, and I'll tell you, give it to Benny Snell. Play defense. I like how they play old school football, and see if they can get to 6-0 as they head on the road. Money time, play of the day. I've been cold. You take it away.
Sure, and this one is just simple. We've been using Tom Herman as an underdog over and over and over again on Sportsbook. Last year, the year before, guess what? We're going to use him again. Betting number 398, Texas plus 7.5. Yes, we like Kyler Murray. We also like Texas as a dog. We like the fact that they didn't play their best football last week, and Oklahoma did. Value with the Longhorns. Take Texas plus 7.5. That's our play of the day.
All right, full recap tomorrow. 3 football games, 2 baseball games. There's 4 playoff games Friday. We'll run through the NFL as well. Sportsbit, Betting Insight today, SBR picks Pauly and Teddy. Low Shack in the bag coming up next. Thanks for watching.